This is Dallas from Narcotic Wasteland, and I will see you at the Tampa Morgue.
Drowning in blood from the skulls of the walls, conflicting hemisphere, wheeling on Mars. But what the mind doesn't know is greater than knowing. Cloud in the blood, till the mind is flowing. Through the mind it is growing. Visions in the brain, erupting mental strain. The consummate, twisted blizzard in escape. No truth will be spoken or known. All involved in implementing in our mind that will never be shown. The soul is humans weakened for what they won't know. Lingering in their mind is the truth that will never be I purge myself of this common sickness while reflecting my true path, shaping the person within. Lying through your face to me is the only truth. With paranoia and patience getting through, I unleash my mind in its truest form. So self-denial shall not be drowning in blood from the skulls of the walls, conflicting hemisphere, wheeling on Mars. But what the mind doesn't know is greater than knowing. Cloud in the blood, till the mind is flowing. I unleash my mind in its truest form. So self-denial shall not be blind.
What's up? This is Tony, and you are listening to the Tampa Morgue, episode number 36. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, dude? How's everything back there in Tampa?
Mr. Anderson, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Doing good. We actually opened up the show with Anthem for the Mentally Scarred off the 2014 self-titled debut record from Narcotic Wasteland, and we are actually joined tonight by Dallas Toler-Wade, and we're really happy to talk to you, man. We're excited. We got a lot of stuff we want to talk to you about. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man.
And you actually in South Carolina right now?
Actually, I've been staying up here in Michigan a lot. Been kind of in the process of slowly relocating. But yeah, I've just been, working on the new stuff and should have a new single coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talk to you about all that kind of stuff. I know, you've been busy you've been busy for a long time now, man. And so we'll start out, I guess, like, I'm sure you've answered a lot of these questions before. We're going to start out with from the beginning, though. So you were actually born in Fayette, North Carolina?
Fayetteville, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
And what was it growing up there? What was it like as a kid? How would you explain the surroundings? Like,
well, I lived in a kind of I lived about 5 miles outside of Fayetteville, so it really was kind of the countryside. You know what I mean? Like a lot of country out there. My dad's family had like a farm and property sort of outside the Fayetteville city limit as well. But yeah, growing up there was in some areas that you didn't want to go, obviously, but that's in a lot of cities. But yeah, I did run into a lot of like-minded musicians, and we used to put shows together and started trading shows regionally with other bands. There was a lot of bands in Raleigh at the time, like were pretty killer, like Aftermath AD, Eldritch Horror, uh, False Prophet. So was lucky to start in those days, with the bands around there, stuff like that. So that was kind of it, you know what I mean?
and as a kid, you grew up in a very musical family. I think you had like several members that were actually either played guitar or bass.
Yeah, my dad played bass. My grandfather on my mother's side played guitar, and my cousin on that side of the family also played guitar and bass and keyboards, and a couple piano players, some wind instruments. Yeah, it was, and then also some of us were getting into acting, like theater stuff, and I never really got too much into that. So yeah, it was kind of encouraged, at least in the family, um, to do that. And I actually started out on the drums, and was just kind of jamming along with old Beatles albums or whatever I could find, and I just kept getting better and better. And then my cousin and one of his friends turned me on to a band called Rush, and that kind of changed the ball game for me quite a bit. And so I started trying to get more into that. And I picked up a couple of rudiment books, and I started getting serious into it. And I'd say the first 4 years, especially. And I could do a little bit on guitar, but I didn't really mess with it too much. I was really intent on being a drummer. Um, but let's fast forward to like 13-year-old Dallas. And so what was one of the things I heard? I was just like, I was already kind of getting into like, the usual suspects, or Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, stuff like that. And then I heard that the song Metal Church by Metal Church at someone's house. And I just had to learn how to play that guitar riff. Just had to. And that's what kind of started it. And then that's all I did. That was all I did. For the first 3 years of playing guitar, that's pretty much all I did.
And you mentioned Rush,
Right.
actually. Didn't you play Tom Sawyer at like a school talent show at like in the fourth grade?
Yes, that was at Haynes School, and it was right there on the front steps of the school. We set the drums up, brought a record player out, and it was. I was a little terrified because I never played in front of that many people, and I was also a little scared because right there before it kicks in the song, when it does like the big drum fill section, a lot of times I would play so loud right there that I couldn't hear my record player, and I'd always get off time a little bit right there. But I actually nailed it that day. It's like, holy crap. Yeah, well, at least as good as, a 10-year-old kid could nail it. I mean,
And and you mentioned your cousin being in a band. That was a big thing for you, right? Because you used to actually go to the rehearsals and
hmm
actually like get to sit behind the kid, I guess, and stuff. Which I mean makes total sense.
yeah, the first time they were, actually, it was set up in like this particular house, like a living room, and it had like a den area. And they were set up in the den, and they were taking a break, whatever. And I just sat back there and started messing around, and and then next thing you know, I just got real fascinated with it, and making stuff out of pots and pans or whatever, and then finally got an old Slingerland drum set from a pawn shop, uh, and I had one crash ride. And a hi-hat and, then your basic two toms, one floor tom, and a snare drum and kick drum. And I remember stomping the hi-hat one time and the cymbals actually turned inside out. I was like, that's great. And then I ended up getting my first set of Sabian hats, and those things were just incredible. And I still have them, I think. I know that I have a couple of other sets. All Sabian. I love Sabian hats.
And your first guitar, actually, do you remember what your first guitar was?
My first guitar, well, I had one that was kind of around. It was called a Kimberly, but I never messed with it, and half the time it didn't work. It was an electric, and it didn't work half the time. My grandfather had an old Gibson acoustic I would mess around with. But my first one that I really played on a lot was the Hondo 2 Les Paul imitation thing. And it was just terrible. And the action was, really high. And I didn't know anything about any of fixing that yet. I didn't know anything about it. So, yeah, that was like the first 9 months. First 9 months of me playing guitar. And then around Christmas time, my mother got me this. I'll show it to you. This was This is my first semi-real guitar that I got in 1988.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just an old platy Ironbird. This is before they started using plywood, though.
Nice.
It's got the painted neck. It's actually pretty good. The fret wire, of course, is pretty bad in some spots because, well, I've had this since I was 14.
I was going to say, it's in pretty damn good shape. You must have done some work to it.
Well, I kept it in the case a lot. It does have the usual suspects, dings on that, and, all the pointy guitars get that stuff. And then a couple years ago, I did do one mod to it that I do to all my guitars, which I just put the strap button there. So you eliminate headstock dive.
Neck dive.
Yeah, that's it. And that balances the guitar to where it's really comfortable to stand and play with it now. So I ended up doing that to all that. But yeah, I've had this since I was 14, and it's still my go-to. Like when I pick this thing up, the neck profile on this thing is so nice. And it feels the most comfortable because I've been playing it longer than any of my other guitars. And
since 14.
Yeah, and it stays in tune really good. A lot of people complain about the locking system on this particular one. It's original. It's not stripped. The Bin Master tailpiece is a piece of crap. Everybody knows that. But I have it flush so it doesn't move. I don't really use a tremolo, so... yeah, but there it is.
Nice. And you actually, in high school, you actually took a music theory class?
Yeah, it was through correspondence school. It was through University of Lincoln, Nebraska, I believe. And they had it was almost like the early days of homeschooling in a way. But yeah, I took that, and then I did take a few guitar lessons. Not too long after I got that guitar, actually, I took a few lessons and learned some things, so a few modes and scales and a few patterns and things like that. And just kind of took it from there. I think one of the first solos I felt like I had nailed pretty closely was the Crazy Train solo. But it was kind of like that. I think it was F sharp Aeolian or something. I could be totally wrong about that. So, but that's what I think it was. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've, checked it out. But yeah, I remember learning that solo, and it just kind of, my mind just kind of opened up.
Well, at 16, your first band was a cover band?
We did a few covers. We did a few of our own songs as well. The guys kind of did want to play some stuff just to try to get good and tight at something, So it was a little bit of both. We had some of our own stuff, and we also did a few covers. Anything from like Metal Church. Actually, back when I could when I could sing, we did Battle Angels from Sanctuary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's back when I was 16 and could hit a high F sharp.
And you've been singing ever since you've been playing, right? So you've pretty much been singing and playing guitar about the same amount of time.
Just about, yeah. I practiced really hard at guitar for about a year or two. I guess I'd been practicing serious for about a year or two when I started meeting, other kids that could also play and form my first band and all that stuff. And so it was just kind of a progression from there. And then, of course, people change and you end up jamming with other people. And then it ended up being like a completely original band, which that band was I actually joined that band. That was Teratosis. That was a lot of fun. Just killer fucking death metal,
And that's actually with Ed Rohn, who you actually play with now in Narcotics. So we'll get to that eventually, but it all ties together.
Yeah.
What was the name of your first band, the cover band? Well, not the cover band. You guys were doing covers and originals, but what was the name of that band?
It was called, originally it was called Severin. And then there was a band named Severin. And then I had gotten the idea from that movie Near Dark. And that was that was the character that I believe Bill Paxton played in that movie was Severin. And so that was kind of it. And we had some horror themed kind of stuff going on with the the songs that we were writing. We were also doing like, Metallica and Slayer and Sanctuary and Priest and, stuff like that for fun. Metal Church, of course. And then, when I joined Teratosis, that was more like death metal and some blast beats. And, that was a little bit more because I was starting to kind of get into that a little more as well. Because at first I was really kind of getting more into the like neoclassical thrashy kind of thing. And then the more primitive brutality just kind of sucked me in after a while, I guess. Especially with the blast beats and stuff like that. It really, I was just like, wow. Blown away.
What was your first time on stage?
One of my favorite albums back then. Of course, I guess the first death metal I really got into was maybe that Bolt Thrower Realm of Chaos. And that had oh man, yeah, I'm a huge Bolt Thrower fan here.
Excellent record.
Oh man, that one and War Master and they never put out a bad record in my opinion. All their shit, you know what you're getting when you buy a Bolt Thrower record.
For sure.
But also another one that was like pretty influential for me back then was that Deicide Legion album. I thought that was just utterly insane.
Oh yeah,
that was that's what started happening, in the late 80s, early 90s. I started picking up these, we used to have this place called, what was that? It was called Camelot Music. We used to go there and get,
we had those
tape.
in Jersey too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Many dollars in Camelot.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one on Bragg Boulevard in Fayetteville. And we'd go in there and I was always buying tapes in there.
That's the back. Remember that then they used to have the demos on the actual counter. You can go to those Camelots and stuff. And you'd actually find local band demos. They would be selling on like a rack in the front. I'll never forget that. And Dallas, do you remember your first show you've ever played?
Yeah, it was at the Countryside Performing Arts Center, which was actually in an old school building that had a pretty nice size, theater room in it. And it was pretty cool. There was a band there that was doing like some pretty bad Guns N' Roses covers and Poison covers and stuff, so we had a lot of fun with that. And there was somebody holding up a no moshing sign, and my friends ripped it up and it's like throwing it around. And It was great. Yeah, it was good times, man. I remember the first note that I hit. I was a little nervous until after the first note I hit, but I remember it was that red guitar I showed you, and I had so much energy when I hit the first chord when we walked out. I actually bent the strings all the way against the neck, and it just made this hard plink sounding noise. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I just kind of snapped out of it, and it was on then, and it's been on ever since.
Yeah, exactly. And you actually, when did you decide to move to Greensville? Because you moved to Greensville, South Carolina. What year?
That would have been like August of '97. Yeah, and as things go with musicians and or just people in general, they decide that they want to do other things in life, and that's fine. So a lot of the musicians that I was jamming with in that area just were on to different things, and Ed actually moved away for a while, and he was always pretty active with stuff, but there just wasn't a whole lot going on in the area except, strip clubs or whatever, which, whatever, nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
there was just no music venues to play. It was just kind of drying up, kind of mid to late '90s. There was a real dry spell in there for just about any kind of live music, and at least in that area. And that was not the case in Greenville and Spartanburg, South Carolina. They had a pretty cool little metal scene going on there, and still do. And
Ground Zero.
yeah, Ground Zero, man.
I
The
played
first
there a shitload of
time,
times.
yeah, yeah, cool place. And before that, they had a place called Doggone, and actually, I had a band called Deucalion, and Ed had joined that band, and we played a show on my birthday, June the 6th. I think it might have been like 94, 95. It's hard to, that's quite a while ago, so it's hard to narrow it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a cool scene here, and I was looking for something to do, and there were two bands that were possibly looking for a guitarist. One of them was Demonic Christ, I believe. Yep, and one of them was Nile. And so I went and checked out the Nile thing, and that kind of worked out. And then yeah, we just started playing some shows, and Nephron Kai had already been recorded. It was about to come out, uh, and then some stuff with the label, and then it ended up on Relapse Records, and then we just tried to get as many tours as we could at that point.
Well, and when you was actually tried out for Nile, did you actually even go to Demonic Christ rehearsal, or did you just kind of hit it off with Nile immediately?
Yeah, I just went there, and I did the Nile one first, and I wasn't really getting any response back about the Demonic Christ gig. So, and I checked it out, and I had in '93, I believe it was either '93 or '94. They were actually scheduled to play a show with my old band Deucalion, and but unfortunately, that band had just kind of dissolved at that point. So yeah, we actually would have played a show with them. But then, yeah, years later, I go up there, and it seemed to work out. And I never heard anything from Demonic Christ. And then John, that used to be in Demonic Christ, he started his own thing called Dark Moon. So that was already kind of. We ended up playing some shows with them, and we just worked it from regional, and then we ended up getting that tour with Incantation, and that kind of changed the ball game. And then when Vader had to drop off of the Morbid Angel tour, we got the call to fill in that slot, and were able to execute it. So that was another big key factor in getting that band off the ground.
I
Yeah,
was
I
talking
played
to Ed
with
about. Go
I
ahead.
played with you guys in that Incantation show. I was in Diabolic at the time, and we played with you in Orlando. It was a
I
killer
know,
show. That was a killer show, man.
and I believe you guys opened that tour. If I was talking to Ed about this before you came on, I was trying to because I've seen you guys. I mean, I know Ed has too. We've seen Nile a lot. I want to say you guys opened up in Tampa at the Masquerade that '98 tour. I could be wrong, but it
I
was
think you may have played the old Brass Mug. It just like had like a corner shot stage.
yeah, it was the original. That was the because there's been three now. That was the original Brass Mug. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and, had the sound control was across the room. It almost had like its own little booth there with like
Yep.
a little window in
Yeah.
it.
JD.
JD, yeah,
was
the
the
sound
sound
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had the Brass fucking mug T-shirt on. He always wore that all the time. Do you actually remember what song when you tried out for Nile? Do you remember the audition songs? Were you given like a couple songs you had to pick up before you got there, or?
I figured I would concentrate on at least three, and that was Ramsey's Bringer of War, Smashing the Antu, and maybe Howling of the Gin. I had a good bit of it figured out by ear, but when I showed up, I had tuned my entire guitar down to A, and I didn't realize that they were in drop. So I actually had to change my tuning right there on the spot. And, luckily, I had done some drop tune stuff before, so I was familiar with it. So I was able to just kind of pull that out of my ass somehow.
what were your first impressions of Carl, Chief, and Pete?
Oh, they seemed, really cool, and it was, really nice to, be in a room with people that were actually serious about doing it, whether it be on a regional level or even a worldwide level, just serious about doing the damn thing and keeping focus on it, because that can be really difficult to find in any type of business, where it be like a band or a convenience store. Finding the dedication and the people that are willing to go the distance. That's difficult.
Oh, definitely. And you actually, when you first joined the band, it was a regional band still, pretty much, right? It was still on that cusp, right?
Yeah, they had a distro deal with Visceral Records, which I think kind of went away and then got picked up by Relapse and released Nephron Ka. And then it was just like, let's go out and try to push this thing, and we just did the best we could with that. And it did kind of start that way, and that's kind of right when I tried out for the band and stuff. And it was a lot of exciting times, a lot of good memories.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was your memories of that Morbid Angel tour? That first, that was a pretty big tour, right? When Vader dropped off of that, because you guys, like you said, you just finished the Incantation tour, and then you got a call right afterwards to fill in for the take the Vader slot.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I think one of the things I enjoyed about that the most was actually watching Morbid Angel. I would watch Incantation and Morbid Angel like almost every night. We were all just hanging out. It was a good feeling, man. It was just a lot of what John from Incantation. I commented on something. He's over somewhere, obviously, with Incantation doing something, and I commented on it. Horns flying high, and that was something he used to say all the time. Horns are flying high. Metal took place tonight. You know what I mean? And that's like, we were just all there for that. It was just a really good, positive time, and that's what we were there for. We were there for the fucking metal, and it was just full of energy and fire. The whole thing. We all were. We were all fired up.
And then you guys also 99, right? You guys was that your first time in Europe, and was your first European show at Dynamo?
Yes. Yep. And that was a really awesome night too. Dreaming Neon Black had just come out from Nevermore, and they were there. So I got to see them perform, and people were already singing along with all those songs on that record, and got to see Overkill. I got to meet Bobby just for a brief moment. And that was really cool. They always deliver live. If you've ever seen Overkill,
Oh
yeah, yes.
yeah. Man. Watching that dude, Bobby would go. We saw on the cruise the 70,000 tons of metal, and Bobby would go behind the fucking the stacks and be hitting off his fucking vape pen,
and they go up there and belt it out.
Thing of smoke, and then run out there. And I'm just like, dude, how do you fucking do that? my voice would be shot like dead. And I'm watching this fucking dude who's not a young chicken. You know what I mean? I mean, he's not, and
Yeah.
fucking, and showing people how to do it. Still showing people how to do it.
Oh yeah.
And
I
same
love
thing with
some of
Worrell.
those old lyrics too. Oh my
Same
god.
thing with Worrell Dane. I mean, it's funny to hear you say Nevermore because, dude, they were one of my favorite bands. Honestly, I mean, there's something about Worrell from the Sanctuary days all the way up to the last, even his solo shit before he died. The dude knew how to write songs. I mean, he was great, and he knew how to sing. That was the key. Was that motherfucker knew how to do vocals like big time.
Yeah, Sanctuary Refuge Denied is definitely easily in my top 10 best metal albums ever.
Agreed.
Because it's just so metal. To this day, it's like you put it on and it's just hair raising and intense as hell. And the riffing, I love Lenny's riffing.
I was lucky to see them open for Megadeth. And that was just like, because that was old Megadeth, not, that was Mustaine in his fucking crazy days. So, I mean, that was a great fucking time. I mean, kids today will never experience what we experienced back then for sure.
Yeah, I saw them on that tour. It was Megadeth, So Far, So Good, So What. And I'd never heard of Sanctuary before, but I did see the ad. I did see an ad for them in a magazine with Fifth Angel also because it was Epic Recording. And Sanctuary blew me away. I went out the next day, bought the cassette, wore that thing completely out, bought another cassette, wore that out, beat The Legend of Zelda listening to that on repeat. Just,
Oh yeah. Even Into the Mirror Black was really well done. It was just more polished. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, it's too polished. But the riffs on that record were, Lenny was, even when they came back, I don't know how you felt about the newer shit, but I was like, man, they were crushing it when he came back after he left Nevermore.
Yeah, The Year the Sun Died, in my opinion, is a really great album. It's got some really great moments on it. And there's just a high level of emotion in it overall. I really enjoy it. I actually, in 2017, the first Narcotic Wasteland extended tour, we stopped off at a record store in Madison, Wisconsin, and they had a copy of it. I'd already been kind of listening to it a little bit on YouTube, but I went ahead and found a copy of it, and we were jamming that thing in the van on repeat a lot. And then he had actually, not too long after I got home from that tour, he had passed away. We were just like, oh my God. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic record.
Yeah, for sure.
99, you guys also toured with, so you guys toured with Vader, Cryptopsy, Enslaved. And you guys actually on that, so those early days, 99, you guys had a very small tour budget, right, with Relapse?
Yeah, I don't even really know the specific details on that. I know that, they helped us get into that particular tour, and we actually, we got to see the Relapse European office and all that stuff. But yeah, we were on a bus at least. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty accommodating overall. Europe is a beautiful place, man, and a lot of really cool people over there. And we were just excited to have a chance to do it and do it, outside of the States.
Was that the same tour you guys blew out the power in France? Was it? You guys were doing a show. I can't remember the city in France it was. You guys had done a show there, and I believe you blew out the power. I think you guys only played like 4 tracks.
That did happen from time to time. There was a place that we played in I think that was in Paris. I don't remember if the power went out or not, but this place had a low ceiling, and there were people literally just crashing onto the stage and hanging off pipes on the ceiling, and it was just one of the most nuts fucking mosh pits I've ever seen in my life. I do remember that. I do remember that we definitely had some power issues a few times here and there. Probably due just because the extra current needed for the space station we used to carry with us back then.
So you guys entered the studio to start recording the Black Seeds of Vengeance record, and you guys had been playing that material for a while on that road. So you guys were doing like a year and a half of that material before you actually recorded it.
There was a couple of songs that we had in rotation that ended up on that album, and one of them was, this is a while back. One of them was "Defiling the Gates of Ishtar" and "The Black Flame." That's it. Those were the two songs. Those were already in rotation and already written pretty early on, even right there in my beginning stages with the band. I think Carl had already put together the Black Flame.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we did those two songs, and then the rest, we took a while off. It was about a year off there where we didn't do any like shows or whatever. And we're just kind of rehearsing a little bit, working on new material, stuff like that. And, just doing the thing two, three times a week and, putting the songs together, learning the demos, figuring all that out. You know what I mean?
And you guys went to the studio, and obviously Pete, actually, who was drumming at that time, who was a founder of the band, co-founder with Carl, actually had the rotator cuff injury, which he actually attempted to record that album.
Yeah, he did, and he was in a lot of pain. I could only imagine. So we had to sort of make the executive decision to see if we could get Derek Roddy to help us out, and he did, and it's turned out really great. Pete played the last track on the album, "To Dream of Her," and of course he did an absolutely fabulous job with it. But some of the faster tracks, of course, was just really difficult for him. So, and then, then we got Derek in there, and, he, of course, did a fantastic job. And then that was pretty much that. And then
at that time period, Derek was just he played in the deboning theory. I mean, the deboning method, which was out of South Carolina, that band. And he was just doing he was a session drummer, right? At that time.
I think this was right when, actually he was doing Divine Empire, I think, for a while. Deboning method, now that's from back in the day. That's like, I remember trying to get my old band Deucalion a show with them back in the 90s. There was a band out of Charlotte called Chronic Disorder that we used to do some shows with. But anyways, yeah, I think he was doing, we played some festival back then in like 98. And he was playing in Divine Empire, I believe, Derek, because I remember he was at the show. And then I think that he might have been just starting up with Hate Eternal or something.
Yeah, he was.
When we started Black Seeds. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, because 2000 is when we did the tour with Cannibal, and Hate Eternal. That was their first tour. Actually, their first shows were on the Cannibal tour. So
wow,
that's crazy, right? To think that your first shows and tours are opening for Cannibal. But yeah, and trust me, him and Jared and Eric did not disappoint one bit. I mean,
oh no, we got to tour with those guys in 2003. We also got to tour with Cannibal in the early 2000 or 2001, and that was a fun tour. But yeah, we toured with Hate Eternal. It was Origin, Hate Eternal, Arch Enemy, and Nile. And that was in 03, I believe. But yeah, they were on fucking fire, man.
Exactly. And with Roddy, did Roddy, when he did that album with you guys, did he know the material? Because I had read that he had just kind of just drove down there and heard the demos basically, and just kind of asked for a click and banged it out.
Yeah, that's pretty much what ended up happening. I was kind of in there with him with a scratch rhythm track so we could hear, the riffs or whatever. So I was playing along with him. And, yeah, we just belted it out section by section and just did punch-ins. And that was just the quickest way to do it at that point, because for us to be able to rehearse and learn everything would have been cool, but the time was just not there. So we just did everything in sections and punched it all in, and it came out great.
And you guys only had, what, 10 or 11 days to record that record?
Something like that. Yeah, it was a crash course for real. And luckily, I mean, you know, as far as me and Carl and Chief, I know that definitely me and Carl were pretty well rehearsed and ready to do what we had to do. And yeah, you know, Derek knocked it out pretty quickly too. Just rolling up in there, not heard a single note. You know, this part goes like this, and you know, just like, okay, all right.
Yeah, listening to that record, you would never know. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, Derek's, you know, I mean, I actually play in a band with Derek now called Doomsla, and Derek, I mean, he's just a beast. The guy is just, and such a down-to-earth guy. Something I really wanted to ask you about, it's really kind of crazy when I hear this. So I'm actually going to play the title track from that record, Black Seeds of Vengeance, in a moment. But is it true that Relapse did not want you guys to call the record Black Seeds of Vengeance? They wanted you guys to call it Seeds of Vengeance because they didn't want the record to offend anybody.
There was some sort of issue with that, and
like I heard they actually made posters and stickers with actually the Seeds of Vengeance on it instead of the actual title that you guys were using.
Yeah, it was just Seeds of Vengeance there for a minute, and I don't know exactly what or why all that went down, but I mean, obviously, it was talking about something completely different from what anybody may have thought it might have been talking about. But yeah, and then, you know, the thing came out, and I like the album cover. I always thought that was a pretty cool looking album cover.
Yeah, Wes did that, right?
I believe so.
Ben Scoter, who did all the Autopsy covers and a bunch of the Autopsy covers. We're actually going to play a song from that record. Now we're actually going to play the title track. This is from the Nile 2000 record, Black Seeds of Vengeance, and we'll be back on the Tampa Morgue right after this track.
All
Okay, welcome back. That was Black Seeds of Vengeance off the 2000 record from Nile. And Dallas, on the tours for that, I heard it was pretty crazy shows, right? They were kind of like small stages and rowdy crowds. I mean, I heard that that was actually a kind of a wild time for you guys. And you also, how'd you guys get Tony on drums for that tour?
Derek recommended him. Of course, we had asked Derek if he might have been interested in joining us, but I think he was really about to ramp it up with Hate Eternal and had a couple other things going on. And he recommended Tony. And then, and then we did a European tour. I remember that. It was, pretty sure it was a headlining tour. It went pretty well. And we also, but I think somewhere in there, this is the time when Chief left the band, and then we got John Visano on bass and vocals, and we did a show. We opened for Cradle of Filth while we were on the Black Seeds sort of tour cycle, and that would have been Carl, me, and John and Tony. And yeah, we did. That was God Forbid, us, and Cradle of Filth, I believe. That was the tour that we did.
And did John get involved from his, like, I know he was with Dark Moon and Demonic Christ and stuff. Was that like all kind of linked together?
Well, yeah, we kind of knew of each other because, back in the day, like, Nile and Demonic Christ and stuff would maybe play shows together or would go see each other's shows or whatever, you know what I mean? Like he was just part of the sort of family of musicians that were in the area, in the Carolinas. And, he was one of the choices when, Chief decided that he didn't want to be with us. And, and then we did all the rest of the Black Seed stuff. And then, I think we turned around and really started working on the new album. I think we started working on Shrines pretty quickly, actually. And during all of that stuff going on, the tours with Black Seeds and all that, we were already kind of digging in on the next one.
And when Chief left, was that a result of, I had heard that so like I said, you guys had like 10 or 11 days to record the record. Was he not satisfied with the bass on the record? Did that kind of relate to that for him, with him leaving the band?
I'm not really sure. And it's been so long now, I don't even really remember the specifics on why he left. I just remember that, he just said that he just said he was quitting. And, and we had a tour on the table, but I think that's when we kind of just decided to shift gears, and luckily we got John in, and then we just started working on new material.
When you guys did that, you mentioned you guys pretty much jumped right into the Darkened Shrines record. You guys were pretty focused at this time, right? Because Tony was heard like just firing on all levels. You guys were pretty much like a machine at that period.
It was definitely becoming that way. Shrines, was definitely pushing a lot of boundaries, and a very challenging album to get together and a challenging album to capture. Because, it was in that kind of time where things started to get kind of crazy with the speed. So it was a little experimental in a way. I mean, I think it probably happened with a lot of some of the more extreme bands. It's like, how the hell do we capture something so dense? And that's always a challenge. That's like one of the largest challenges of recording this kind of music, is when the situation is so dense. How do you get that clarity that you need?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and as far as mixes go, I'm not personally terribly happy with the mix of Shrines. I think it sounds a little muddy. Some people love it. I think the material on there is great, of course, but I would love to hear a remix and a remaster of that album.
And that album that album was supposed to be like I had heard that album was supposed to be listened to from the beginning till the end to actually get the full effect album of the record. You're supposed to actually listen to it from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely encouraged, but it definitely also had some standalone tracks, that would work well by themselves. But it did paint a nice picture if you just listen from the top, from Blessed Dead all the way down to the end. Because there's a lot of twists and turns along the way. Turning the Maelstrom. I think that might have been the fastest song we had ever done at that point. Yeah, and it's just there's a lot of twists and turns on that record.
And you guys also when you guys write, you guys so it goes what lyrics first, and then you guys basically start trading demos, and then take the tracks to the rehearsals.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it would be. Especially I only wrote lyrics a couple of times in the band because Carl really does a great job at all that. He's very creative lyrically, and so yeah, sometimes he would just be like, "Hey, here's a set of lyrics or whatever." So most of the time, yeah, it was kind of here's some lyric ideas, and let's try to get that going. You know what I mean, like through the music and everything, and paint a picture. And it was really cool to work that way because you just have it like your song is kind of already mapped out there, so it just kind of gets a good direction. It helps you get a good direction right out of the gate that way. It's pretty cool. Uh, the other way works cool too. Having some music first and then putting lyrics to it, but it's cool to even at least me personally, I like to at least have some sort of working title to give me an idea of what the hell it's supposed to sound like. It just helps me. We need information.
Exactly. And that with that record, what I think that was said to be like the pinnacle. Like you had the three records, right? The first record, and obviously for yours actually this would be your second record, the darkened one, because you did the Black Seeds with the band. But it kind of summed up those first three records.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It was definitely getting in that direction. And then we move on to what happens next, which is Annihilation of the Wicked, which might be my personal favorite from the catalog. We got in George Coleus, and some things just started really happening, and the consistency live also with George was just he was so consistent every night, and and then just the overall, just everything, everything that Nile had already done was captivated in Annihilation in the best way possible. And we were still breaking some ground speed-wise. So it just ended up being a fucking vortex of an album.
Yeah, and you mentioned Annihilation, which before that you guys were just starting to take off, right? Because I don't know what year it was. I was reading an interview once where I don't know if it was Carl or you, it might have been you, had said that at the end of that record of the Shrines record, you guys actually had to pawn some of your gear off to pay because you guys were just getting to that point where you had not like taken off yet, basically. And when you guys finished that record, because you guys had busted your ass so much on it, when you guys got out, you were pretty much wiped out.
Yeah, I think that was a Carl interview. But yeah, we put everything we had into that, and we got to work with a producer for the first time on Annihilation, Neil Kernan, and just so happens that he did my favorite Nevermore albums. And a lot of other stuff that Neil's done. He's a great producer and a really great guy and a lot of fun to work with and very knowledgeable, and that was part of the game changer as well.
And Neil didn't try to overproduce you guys, right? On those early records, he wasn't trying to overdo it.
No, he never really did. I mean, he would just try to. We would all just try to figure it out, and basically, the idea was we wanted aggressive. We don't want it super computer tight all the time, and we don't want it to sound too much like everything else. Like, we wanted the guitars to sound a little on the retro side, or at least I did, because, well, if you hear Narcotic, he likes 80s guitar tone. Yeah, that's me all the way. But, Nile always has this big, thick wall of guitars with hell of a lot of distortion, and you know what I mean? And that album really, Annihilation, really captivated that the best, I think. Um, and, What Should Not Be Unearthed was my last record with the band. I really like how that album turned out. It's like a real close second for that one and Those Whom the Gods Detest. I would say those three are like pinnacle, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also mentioned George coming into the band. That was he was suggested by Derek?
Also, yes, he was also suggested by Derek. And I remember Derek saying, "Yeah, the guy's a 1 foot monster." I was like, "Oh shit, here we go."
Yeah,
And
George is
then,
amazing. I mean,
yeah, he's an incredible drummer, and and very knowledgeable about all that stuff. And yeah, he's a good musician, man, a cool guy, pretty laid back guy.
when you guys were doing Annihilation, what did he move down for a little bit on like for a couple weeks and stayed with Carl and you guys? Because I know he was going back and forth, right, back to Greece.
I think he stayed in town for like a month. Um, it may have even been longer. And we like worked all the songs up and rehearsed everything and got it at least all the musical side of things tight, and made sure we're playing all that stuff right. And yeah, and then we went and recorded the drums, and we did that at Sound Lab Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. Really cool drum room, really good sounding drum room there. And we worked with the guy there too, the engineer Bob, and that was good. It was a good time, man. And George went in there and just killed it. And then he went home, and then we put the rest of it together. And yeah, I'd say overall it was probably maybe 2.5 months of just every day on this thing.
Was there a lot of pressure by the label since you had some success, like the success of the prior record?
I don't think so. I think they were, I really don't think so. I think we were kind of on schedule at that point, kind of on target, and yeah, we had all the stuff prepared because there's a lot of pre-production that goes in with with a band like that, and there's already like completed demos with full-on vocals and solos and everything. You know what I mean? Like the pre-production level was really high. So when we went in, it was just even though it took a lot of time, just because we wanted everything to be as good as we could make it or capture it the best we could. We were very prepared when we walked in on that one, probably more than ever.
When you talked about working with Neil, that was what you guys were really big fans of the Wretched Spawn album he did for Cannibal Corpse, right? His work on that record that came out. Was that a big deciding factor on working with him, do you think?
I think he was actually recommended by the label. But then, when I heard the news from Carl, I was just like, wow. And I was like, didn't he do like a Dokken record or something? And then I got the kind of research, and I was like, oh shit, this guy is really cool. And then,
Queensryche.
like I said, working with him, he's super cool and laid back and funny. Sometimes we would be giggling so hard at ridiculous Monty Python jokes. I was wondering we got anything done.
Sonic Ranch. I mean,
he talks about that place. Yeah.
That's right. I worked with Neil down there, and it's a different breed, man. Pissin' Razors, Queensryche. He did fucking, I think, an Elton John record. I mean, that dude, like, when you look at his catalog of just not death metal, it's crazy. He's definitely a weird dude, but in a good way, because he knows how to get what you want.
Oh yeah, absolutely incredible at it. He's done some of my favorite records. The Jeffrey Dahmer record, Macabre. That's one of my favorite records too. I love the sound on that record.
When you were working on that record, The Annihilation, were you guys trying to do pretty much do the fastest and most technical record you had done yet? Was there a lot of work, like a lot of focus on that with that album?
I think I think with Nile, I mean, at least from my point of view, the biggest focus was always we wanted big and epic and heavy as we could get, you know. And sometimes that definitely required some technical skill to pull that off. But that was the idea, was the big picture. We wanted this big epic sound and all these super memorable, like catchy parts sometimes, and then this sort of man up on a podium kind of like screaming at you. And I don't know, it was kind of more about that. But definitely, I'm a practicing musician. I'm still trying to learn stuff, and a lot of that is just to keep up on keep the stuff, the fingers moving. But yeah, I think that was always the ultimate goal. At least that's the way it felt to me, is that it was always about just trying to make this big, massive, weighty sound.
And I think it was John who said after he left the band that when you guys did Annihilation, that it was the most pro level outfit that he ever had played with, and the work ethic was just insane that you guys had at that time period.
Oh yeah, man, we were definitely in it, like full tilt, pedal to the floor, and then the touring for that record and all that, and then it was just a repeat button. You go do an album, and then you go tour, and you do an album, and you go tour. And yeah, it is Nile is a metal machine.
And John left, but he actually did he did some vocals on some future albums you guys did, right? Because I think he did some vocals on the God's Detest record, um, the Gate record, and I think a couple other things he did some vocals on after he left the band. And you guys would actually wind up getting actually someone who has Tampa roots. You guys would wind up getting Joe Payne in the band. You remember how?
Yes, during the Annihilation era, yeah, he was our live bassist, and uh, you know that was he was great, man. I got to see him a couple of months before he passed away at Ground Zero in Spartanburg, and yeah, what a incredible talent Joe had, man.
He did what, 2005? He did the American and the European tour with you guys.
Hmm. Yeah, he pretty much did all of the Annihilation tours, and then we started working on Iphythalic, and yeah, and then he left.
Was he 19 when he joined the band?
He was something like that. He was right at 21, I believe. He was pretty young.
Okay, so he left the band, and I heard he was he has some Tampa roots, obviously, and I know he played with Electrous Nocturne and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Joe Payne, and then, so like you said, 2007, you guys start working on the Iphythalic record, and you guys add bassist. You added Chris, right, to the band?
Yeah, Chris from Lecherous, actually. He was in Lecherous at the time also. Yeah, Chris Lawless.
Okay, and you guys, so for that and that record also, I mean, you guys, I noticed a certain trend of that with Nile. It seemed like when you guys were doing those records, it pretty much consumed you guys when you guys would record. You guys pretty much, I've noticed with most of those records during the time of recording, it pretty much took over your lives, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, 15 hours a day in the studio for, weeks. And it was, I loved it. I love recording. I love playing live, and I love recording. Um, it was a great experience, and got to, of course, again, we recorded drums at Sound Lab in South Carolina, and then actually we recorded everything there. The Annihilation, and we recorded everything there, and then we went up to Rack Strax in Chicago and did the mix. Yeah, it was me, Carl, and Neil at Rax Tracks in Chicago to do the mix, and yeah, we did Those Whom the Gods Detest the same way. I mean, that was pretty much, that's so funny too because those albums sound so different from each other. But yeah, it was pretty much the same overall. When it came to the recording process, it was kind of the same formula for those three records, and it was great. It was a great time. The Rax Track studio had a beautiful SSL console in there, and you know, working with Neil and all that. It was a fun time. I love studio.
Yeah, and for the Anti-Phallic, you did the bass on that too, right? Except for I think one
Yeah,
track maybe.
on those albums, and I think on Shrines too, there was me and Carl had to play bass a lot. I'll just say that. I don't remember exactly what and when, but yes, he and I played a lot of bass on those albums.
So, and you guys used to actually back those days. You guys would actually carry practice amps on the bus with you on tours. So you guys would just still jam and still write.
Yeah, and mostly just for maintenance. Just staying up on the chops. Yeah, if there was some space backstage or something like that, Carl was usually almost always playing his practice amp, and I'd bring one too, and I would usually get my warm up and my stuff in at sound check. I would get there early and just kind of warm up really quietly uh, for about 45 minutes while they, pin the stage and do their thing, and that was kind of my warm up. And then sometimes after the show on the bus or whatever, I would jam in the back lounge, come up with a lot of cool stuff like that. And yeah, Carl will sit back there. He practices a lot during the day, and I would get some in as well. Uh, and I still practice a lot, man. I've been doing a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel, on the Narcotic YouTube
I
channel.
saw that a lot of guitar playthroughs and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been really fun, man. The I practice. I try to practice what I call the long set list at least 3 times a week, and that is anything the band has ever played live, plus anything new. You know what I mean? And that runs right now with the two albums and the new singles and stuff like that. That's and including some of the new songs I haven't released yet. That's just over 2 hours of music.
Uh,
So I do that like 3 times a week to just stay up on it. I was talking to the missus, and she was like, "Well, you should just do some playthroughs. You're gonna be playing this shit anyways." And I'm like, "Well, you're kind of right." So that's where that kind of came in. Uh, the debut album came out in January of 2014, so we're kind of celebrating the 10-year anniversary of it with that. And it's got a lot of great responses. I was really surprised at that, and I got some requests, so I'm going to be doing a few more of them as well before I move on to something else. But yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. Like I said, I'd be practicing them anyways. So
yeah, I've seen you've been putting the guitar playthroughs up there. I've been noticing that actually. Um, when you took over the main, there was a period of time you took over the main vocals during this time period. It was not a big deal to you because you had been used to doing this. I mean, it's crazy how like the way you play and sing at the same time. It's just it seems effortless to you. But one of the big things with Carl was he liked the way you pronounce things, right? Your enunciation of the words.
I guess so. I mean, one of the things that kind of was the factor is like we always wanted to kind of have in that band. We always kind of wanted to have that sort of triple vocal attack thing, and that was really cool. But I mean, and you know, but what ended up happening is some of the stuff started getting a little bit more complex as far as what it was saying and how you had to say it. And, some people would go in there and try to do the line and spend like 30 minutes to an hour and not be able to nail it down. And I can go in there and do it in like a couple of takes. So that's kind of where that started to happen. Um, And then, of course, John left the band, so it was really just me and Carl at that point. And Joe, Joe did some vocals, and they were pretty killer. But unfortunately, he didn't get to be on a record or anything. And Chris as well also had some good vocals. We always wanted to try to keep that triple vocal thing going. It just adds a lot of additional flavor to everything instead of it just being like one person. But yeah, I guess it did end up being a little bit more me in the later records. It's probably just by accident, or whatever.
And with Ithy were you guys kind of rushed because you guys were on Ozfest, right? 2007. And how was that experience? Because I think it was you guys and Behemoth were like the two heavier bands on that, I believe.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a heavier year. No, I don't think we were really under pressure. We had everything written. That was the thing, like when we knew when a deadline was, especially for me, if I knew that it was like, okay, we got to be ready to go by such and such date. I actually like that because it's like, okay, that I can work with that. I can schedule a thing and get a to-do list together and all that stuff and figure it out. So I like to have a sort of a timeline, if you will. It just helps me tremendously. So we always kind of had that going on. It's pretty freaking organized, man. That's one of the reasons why that shit delivered and it always came out like the way it did.
Yeah, because it got to a point where you guys couldn't even keep I know you guys were touring so much there was pretty much no you just would have to work jobs where you pretty much had to leave town and get a new one when you came back because you guys were busy. I mean, you guys did a lot of touring.
Yeah, I mean, and it was a full-time job. That's all I did for years.
How was Ozfest for you guys? Did they treat you guys well there, or was it?
Yeah, it was cool. Everybody was cool, and we had a pretty good crew with us and stuff. So it was a wild time. They cage you up in the back with all the buses and all the bands and shit, and somebody's giving alcohol to these animals. It was wild. It was a pretty wild time. I remember. Let's see. What was I spending when I wasn't? Because we had a lot of shows in between the Ozfest dates too that we were headlining in now. Actually, Doth was on those shows.
Okay, I remember them.
Yeah, they just put out an album not too long ago. But yeah, so we that was like 9 weeks of almost every day. We're either headlining or we're doing our 20-minute Nile commercial at Ozfest.
That what it was, 20 minutes set you guys were getting set time?
Yeah, so we play. It got to the point where they wouldn't change it up too much, and then we were just going on at like 3:30 in the afternoon or something like that, and we'd play like 20 minutes, and then there was nothing to do really for the rest of the day. So I'd usually grab a beer, make a sandwich, go to the back of the bus, and play some Duke Nukem 64. I think that's what I was playing on that.
Yeah, after that, you guys do the Ozfest, and then you guys start working on, like you said, the God's Detest record. And George recorded the drums with Rattan on that one at Mana.
Yeah, we all went down there. Me, Carl, George, and Neil, and we went down there and recorded the drums with Eric in Eric's room, and that was a fun experience. And Eric's cool as hell, so he's always been super cool to us, and nice setup there. And yeah, we did that. Then came back up and we recorded the rest of the elements at Carl's house in his studio.
Okay.
And we were finally starting to. Well, he was starting to really add to his home setup, so it's pretty legit, man. So we did the rest of it there, and then I think. Yeah, we started. I think Neil started bouncing back mixes, or actually, for those in the Gods of Test, we did go back up to Rax Tracks in Chicago, and that was the last time we went to Rax Tracks. I think the place closed down, unfortunately.
With Rattan, you guys had a relationship with them from Cannibal, because you guys were really tight with Cannibal Corpse, and you guys obviously Morbid Angel and stuff. But that was actually your first time actually in his studio, Rattan's.
Yeah,
St. Pete.
Yeah. Pretty cool place.
And also during that time period was George had a leg injury. Was that for that record, right? The Gosdy Test record. During the recording session, he actually was pretty hurt.
Yeah, he had Charlie horsed. I believe it was his left calf muscle, and so he was in pain. So we got this BioFreeze stuff and I put it on there. And I remember him being like, "It's burning. Let's go." And so we just took a little more time, and we would just get him to get through one song a day. And even if he felt like he could do more, we were just like, "Nah, man, just go back to the hotel and get some rest." And then we would check out the session and make sure everything was cool, and then we would pretty much knock off for the day too. The first couple of days, we were just getting some scratch guitar tracks together for him to track with. You know what I mean? So we had that to do while he could rest, and that's how that went. And so we got all that stuff done, and then it was a good time. And
did Chief Spires give you guys? He did some vocals on that record also.
We on a few of those. John did some weird sort of sounds and speaking in tongue weirdness a couple times, and Chief helped out with some of the chanty parts on some of the songs over the years. I'm thinking on Those Whom the Gods Detest, it was Fourth Era of Dagon, the Dagon part. I think everybody, like 30 people, got in on that or something, And just get a group of people together and put them in a room and give them all headphones and say, "Do this." Yeah, fun times.
You guys, off of that record, you guys toured with what? Emulation, Christian, which I fucking love Christian, Abigail Williams, Dreaming Dead. Then you guys would do the 2012 record, which was the At the Gates of Sethu, which was 2012 on Nuclear Blast, and that was actually the band's highest charting record, I believe.
It could be. We did have a pretty slick video that may have helped with that for the Enduring the Eternal Molestation of Flame, I believe it's called. I would say that there's a lot of great material on that record. Mix-wise, it was definitely, particularly the guitar tone, was a serious departure from what people would expect. It is very clean. It's very clear. But it's just not that normal fat wall of Nile guitar. You know what I mean? So it's
that
still
was done on purpose.
I listened to it today. If I listened to it, I listened to it maybe a few months ago, just checking out some different stuff, and I'd like it better now than I did then. But it's still probably my least favorite of all of them.
And that actually album, now, was that done on purpose? Because I heard that was the one record that kind of divided like the fans. Like some people either loved it or you either hated it.
That's very possible. And it was a very different sounding album compared to what we have been kind of doing with the tried and true Fat Marshall sound, And that's, but the funny thing is that was the same. What may not have been the exact same amp, but it was the same amp model. It was the Marshall JCM 2000. But it had a completely different boost in front of it that was a lot cleaner and scrapier. And it was kind of, I guess in a way, it was kind of the Nile's thrash metal record or something, In a way, it was, the guitar work was very scalpel sharp in some spots, man. Like I said, there's some good songs on it and stuff, but for me as a whole, Those Whom the Gods Detest and What Should Not Be Unearthed are better albums, in my opinion. I think it's more back to, what you would expect from Nile. Not that we ever made the same album over and over again. Of course, people I've seen the comments. People have accused us of that. Everything's been the same since Annihilation. Oh, you mean there's actually a mix that you can fucking hear?
Yeah, and people will complain about as you know with comments. People will complain about anything. It's like they will complain about every fucking thing.
The similarities is that it actually has an audible mix where you can hear the notes and stuff. Like, that's all the same now. Oh yeah, you can hear every note.
Well, I think you guys kind of like when you recorded that record, wasn't it? You guys kind of made it clear that was kind of a record. I wouldn't say you guys did it for yourselves, but you kind of just did what you got. It was kind of done on perfect, those clean tones and stuff, right? So you can hear all what you guys were playing exactly and stuff. And I know there was like a lot of divide. Some, like we said, either people didn't understand it or did understand it, but you guys kind of knew going into that you guys were kind of doing it a little different that time.
Yeah. It was just, nobody wants to make the same album or even the same song twice. And so, there it is. And like you said, some people love that album, some people don't like it. And that's cool. They can listen to the other ones.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is when you guys did the next record, right, What Should Not Be Unearthed, it was totally different. It was the actual total opposite of that. Right, the guitar tones were much heavier. It was just a totally different record, and that was also on purpose.
Yeah, we decided to go back to the sort of tried and true Wall of Marshall sound that was, just kind of the thing, the thick, heavy, low guitars. And we were still able to maintain enough clarity. So, I mean, everything was there. It was a pretty good balance of everything. It's the mix to me is pretty similar of the one that's Those Whom the Gods Detest. Those albums sound pretty similar to each other as far as all that goes, as far as the mix and everything. And it's Unearthed came out really. That's one of my favorite ones, and the song "Evil to Cast Out Evil." I'm really proud with how that turned out, and it's one of my favorite solos I've ever done. A lot of good moments on that record.
Now, when you do your solos, you're really into the harmonies, right? That's a big thing with you.
Yeah, for some of that, I do like the big melodies and the harmonies and stuff like that. But every now and then I'll let loose with some shred. But I don't know. I've always kind of considered myself to be a little bit more of a kind of a riffer or a rhythm player. But yeah, every now and then I'll bust it out, and I practice that stuff a lot. But so a lot of that is just for me to have the chops. I don't like to be limited by my body. You know what I mean? So I do practice a lot of scales and crap like that just to stay up on chops and keep my fingers moving. And, again, about playing the set list. I mean, playing rhythm guitar on all these songs for 2 hours, that's a pretty good workout. Oh, yeah. But if you stick to the regiment, man, the gains and just having that, I don't know, the stamina and the control and the dexterity and all that, you do see a difference. Because if you take a week off and then try to pick that set list up again, you're going to be like, your hands are going to be hurting, this part of your arm is going to fall off,
And you guys recorded that? You guys pretty much recorded that yourselves, that record? That pretty much did everything in-house?
Yeah, same thing with the drums. I think we recorded that at the Sound Lab, and then did everything else at Carl's house. And then for Unearthed, Neil, I think he mixed the stuff at his place, and then just sent us back the mixes to listen to on our monitors. And
how much did you learn from Neil? How much did you take from him when you guys started really working on the stuff yourself, from the experiences you had worked with him on a couple previous albums?
Oh man, I mean, he's a fountain of knowledge when it comes to all this stuff, and I've learned an incredible amount of stuff from him. Not just recording, but just overall sort of philosophies about things. You know, incredible dude. Great to work with, and he actually worked with me on the Narcotic Wasteland second album, Delirium Tremens, and yeah, fucking love the job he did on that too. Turned out incredible. Yeah, I love that guy.
And you and Carl were like a team, right? You guys, I mean, you guys were pretty much the backbone for many years. Like working with Carl, like what was that? What was that experience for you those years? Because I mean, like I said, you guys were kind of like the duo.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's very creative, so a lot of long phone conversations, a lot of coming over with guitars and asking questions, and you know what I mean. Like especially when we were working on stuff and trying to put all of it together. And I usually would just swing by and be like, "All right, well, show me this new song you got." You know what I mean?
Did you guys live down the street from each other?
Yeah, we live pretty close.
That's convenient. Okay. And you know, obviously, we know what 2016 you left the band. Did you? And we don't. You know, you don't have to give us any details really or anything. But did you kind of know? Like, I know personally, and I know Ed knows from just being in bands our whole lives. Was there a certain time, like? So I know you did the Summer Slaughter tour in 2016. I think that was with Cannibal Corpse, Chrissy, and Suffocation, a bunch of Revocation, a bunch of bands. Did you kind of know, like, a little bit before that you kind of wanted to change in the back of your head? You know, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You get that kind of feeling like you've done it for this amount of time. And I know you started, which we're going to talk about, Narcotic Wasteland, actually. And I know you had already, you know, you were already doing this because it actually started basically in 2011, the idea for it. But was this something inside of you that you kind of felt for a while? Like you just kind of knew that it was time for you to make a change in your life?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, um, the Summer Slaughter tour and one of the tours that we did in Europe, um, there was some things that were really starting to wear on me. Not even anything with anybody in the band. It was just being out all the time and dealing with some less than desirable people every now and then, and you know, being away from my kid who was going to be graduating soon, and there was just a lot of things, and it was just time for me to take a step back, and it was just time. You know what I mean? I really needed to just get away from the situation and do some different things, and yeah. And you know, those guys, I think they're going to be putting a new album out pretty soon. That's from what I can tell, because I still check out and see what they're doing.
Is it
You know,
odd for you at all? Like just looking from the outside, at first at least, was it like when you see Nile and you're not involved in it at first, there's like a little bit of like, well, that's weird. You know, it's kind of like maybe seeing an ex-girlfriend or whatever the hell you'd say, you know, walk by like, huh, that's a little different now. You know, I'm used to being in that.
um, I wouldn't say that was really. I remember because the next tour that was slated, and I left the band before that, before doing that tour, which was their tour with Overkill. And I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, "Oh, it's about 8:30, 9 o'clock, right? That's probably about time for me to get ready for the show." You know, um, but no, not really. I mean, I had kind of a lot going on actually in my personal life as well that was less than desirable. Um, and I really just wanted to spend some quality time with my son at that point, and so that is exactly what I did. And you know,
No,
I worked on the narcotic thing, you know, on the side, and then finally one day I was just like, well, you know, screw it, let's try to get this thing going. You know, why not?
you know, and
And
you mentioned the touring thing, we talk about this, Ed, sometimes on the show. So for people who don't realize, because you know, people who see outside of the, if you're not in the bands or you don't know what it's like, you're pretty much just sitting around all day, right? You're like play for however, like say you play for an hour that night, or an hour and a half or whatever it is. But besides that, you're just pretty much killing time all day. And like you said, when you have a child or you have a family back at home, it's got to tear at you a bit after a while. At first, when you're like 18, 19, 20, it's a big party. But when you start getting
pre-cell
older,
phone days, pre-cell
Yeah.
phone days was the worst, man. Because like when I met my wife, I was on the Cannibal tour with Diabolic, Hate Eternal, and God Dethroned, and I had started dating my wife, who's my wife now, a month before I left for that tour. She had no idea, and she had a kid, just barely a 2-year-old. And I remember doing 10, 10, 220 from the call and collect from the payphones and screaming out the number that I was at the payphone for her to call me back on 10, 10, 220 because you got the discount for the call instead of a collect call. Dude, and I'm just, I go, man, nobody knows the fucking struggle. Walking, I remember we played L'Amour's and I walked 2 miles to a fucking phone to find a payphone in New York City.
well, now there's no phones.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's that. Yeah. But I remember that was a lot of reason I quit bands, because people were, when I had kids of my own, they didn't understand that that's a priority sometimes. And, I can imagine you going as hard as you were.
Yeah, how long were you going straight, Dallas, for touring? You were doing, well, how many years? Pretty much like, I know you might take some time off, but what was pretty much your run?
Usually it would be 6 months or 7 months out of the year, which it wasn't all at once. So I mean, in a way, even with a family, it worked itself out because once I was home, I was actually just home, and I could concentrate on that most of the time. So that was fine. But there were just some things about how certain things were being handled concerning Summer Slaughter and some of the staff of Summer Slaughter, stuff like that. And then there was a couple of incidents on the last tour in Europe with a particular musician and another band, and I was just like, I'm really getting burned out on humanity at this point, and I was just getting frustrated, and it really wasn't even anything to do with any of the guys in the band. It was just shit outside of the band that was driving me nuts, and just stupid shit, people being dumbasses. I mean, sometimes and then you start saying to yourself, it's like, why am I doing this? I would much rather, I came out here to deal with this guy when I could be having a great time at home with my kid, And that was the thing that kind of was starting to set me off. So, and then, and then I decided to leave, and then a year later, we released Delirium, and then went on a U.S. tour, which went pretty good. It went pretty good overall, since there was no real promotion on anything. So, considering that, it went pretty well.
So when you first started Narcotic Wastelands, which is the band you're currently in now, so it was like a 2011, you guys kind of came up with it basically formed, right? And so you were writing songs on that was it the last Nile tour? You were still, during your last, say, 6 months, a year with Nile, you're writing material. And basically there's stuff that fits Nile and stuff that doesn't fit Nile, correct? And you kind of like, because at first was Narcotic Wasteland was going to be basically a side project from you playing all the instruments?
Yeah, that's how it was going to start, and then me and Ed, it was MSN Messenger back then, and me and Ed we were always staying in touch on that. Just hey man, what's up? Whatever. I might hear from him in 2 seconds. I might hear from him. He might reply to that a month from now or whatever. It is. Yep. And and then we just started back and forth, and we just started kind of like, he was always sending me song demos and stuff that he was messing around with, and the guy's written probably like 1 million songs, so we were just kind of trading demos and stuff back and forth, and it just came along that maybe we could do a project together again, because we had so much fun jamming in bands back in the day, and that's kind of how it started. I wrote the very first song for Narcotic Wasteland. It was called Widespread Narcotic Wasteland. That was the name of the song. I wrote that song probably 2010 even. It was the very first one, and I was just I was just in a mood that was a little bit more on the sort of like thrashy side. I just kind of got a little, I don't want to say burned out with like the super low tuning.
Well, and you're a punk. You're into like growing up. You were into the punk and the thrash, right? I mean, you were not really.
Yeah,
It
that
wasn't
was
so much
kind of
death
the
metal. It
thing.
was more.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved all the wonderful albums that came out. You know, all the usual suspects. Anything from Gore Guts to Suffocation to Immolation and old Bolt Thrower and you know all the awesome shit. Napalm Death, Harmony Corruption. That's another one.
Mhm.
It was just a lot of you know that I really dug a lot of that too. So yeah, um, and I don't know. I just with the guitar tuned a little bit more normally. It just for me it has a certain clarity and aggression to it that's just a little bit different. And you know, I just again like you said, I had some ideas that just didn't really fit the Nile thing.
And even
And
lyrically, I think with Narcotic Wasteland, it kind of has that punk point of view. It kind of has that. It's just different, you know. It kind of has, I would say, the wording of punk songs in a way, if that makes any sense to you. I mean, in the
yeah,
band, you have thrash, punk, black metal, even. There's everything in music style wise, but the way the lyrics are delivered, I kind of feel like they have that old punk feel to them.
yeah, that is definitely coming out to a certain degree, and you know, not getting too like crazy poetic with a bunch of thesaurus words that doesn't make any sense. You know, there's a lot of that kind of lyricking going on out there, and I just wanted to have something to where you take all the really nasty stuff about humanity that we don't like, and I just wanted to put it right there in your face, you know,
Yeah,
and I wanted it to have that aggression and be like very upfront and very, you know, in the face with the overall attitude of it. Um, yeah,
so
and we've got, you know, I've got this album that I'm hoping to finally release sometime this summer. It's been way too long, but you know, of course, with COVID and you know, just every possible thing roadblock imaginable has gotten in the way of putting this record out. But you know, that's just how it is, and
well, you got
I'm not even upset about it. It'll come out and it'll be awesome, and I've already got stuff uh, for the next one. So
you. I know you guys been putting out singles and stuff too, and you guys because you got because like you said, it's you and Ed who you were with Ed and Teratosis, and you known him for a long time, and Ed got Chris Dupree, is it, to play bass
mhm.
on? So you
Yeah.
guys got him, and you guys did so the material on the first one is kind of interesting because you've had like it's like a lot of experience you've dealt with, right? Like there's a song, so you actually had a stray bullet go through your kid's bedroom.
Yes. He wasn't
Wow.
there. He was. This was after we had already divorced, and I was living in town in a pretty decent little apartment, and that was at the house that we you know that we had collectively bought together when we were married. And yeah, some kind of thing happened at the neighbor's house, and somebody was popping off a gun, and yeah, there was bullet holes there. And he was with me that day, so yeah, he was very very lucky. Meth lab also exploded in down the street from there, and yeah, so I put that in the song, and
And I know
yeah,
you're a big
so
fan of like the true crimes too and stuff, which I mean, you know, I know you actually, which we're going to play one of the songs from, we're going to play Coastal Killings here in a minute. And I know that's actually about Pee Wee Gaskins, which was the total psychopath. And
yes,
that you wrote that basically in one day after reading a book about him, which is The
yep,
Final Truth.
yep. The final truth. I read the book, sat there on the couch in the living room and read that book, and it's a pretty. I mean, you know, it's not a difficult read in this in the normal sense. There's a section about halfway through that book that you don't know if you want to continue reading this book anymore or not. And I'll also say this about that book. If whether you believe in the death penalty or not, after reading that book, you're going to want to.
Yeah, he like drowns children. I mean, it's
He does
crazy
some
shit.
horrible, horrible things that he did.
And that was South Carolina. Was that the Carolinas he was doing this in, right?
Yep. It was near Sumter, which is kind of close to, Charleston or somewhere between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. I'm not sure the exact geography on that, but yeah, it ain't that damn far from Greenville. Only about 3 or 4 hours from there or something. But yeah, it's that was an interesting read, and yeah, then I went out into the studio / garage thingy that I had at the time, and fired up the guitar and started jamming, and yeah, literally put that thing together in a night. I remember going to bed just completely cooked, thinking, man, I think I might almost have this done. And then I listened to it the next day and I'm like, oh, it's done. I just need a chord for the end. Bang! Just jump, and that's done. I was like, oh, okay, great. And then I had jotted down a bunch of stuff from the book, and I put the lyrics together and tracked it. Yeah. And then, sent that to everybody, and they were just like, holy crap, man, this is pretty slick. And it's cool. I mean, the arrangement of that song is pretty simplistic, but it's just one of them things that just all came together and it just works. And it's always a fun live song, and it always kind of gets the crowd moving.
And you have Eric Schultix playing drums on that, and he was recommended to you from George, right? Everybody's recommend you got George from Derek, and then Eric's from George.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
I was really having a difficult time locking down a drummer, and that's because initially it was going to be me, but of course I started writing stuff that is, currently impossible, probably forever out of my drumming capabilities. So, I can program them.
And that's one thing I forgot to mention, Dallas. You did play drums with Lecherous Nocturne, right? For 2 years, was it? 2003 to 2005 or 2004 to 2006 or some shit like that, right?
It was, it was more like 04 through 06, and did some shows with them, and helped produce the Adoration of the Blade album, and played drums on that album. And that was a fun experience, and that was all because of when we got done with the last U.S. Darkened Shrines tour. I was really fired up I wanted to learn how to play a blast beat, and I knew the mechanics behind it, and I had programmed a couple of them, and and for demos and whatnot. And I got a brand new Pearl export kit at a musician's friend and had it delivered. And I rented out a storage unit, which was storage bins and bands in town would rehearse there. They would rehearse there. So rented a storage unit and set it all up, and started jamming and working on my chops. And I did have a couple of old like Deucalion songs or something that I was just trying to get back, because I hadn't played drums really at all in like 10 years. And when I put them down, I was actually still pretty damn good at them. But I just, they just collected dust, and I ended up selling my kit. And then I bought that one, which I still have that kit. It's a great kit, actually. It's the one that we still use in the back line. That Pearl kit is actually the drums that were used on Annihilation of the Wicked. And the toms on that, for some reason or another, are just so good. And it's just a basic export kit. But the toms just rip, man. They're just deep, and they just sound great. They still sound great. But yeah, that's what... Just playing with these drummers, like all these drummers that are just blasting and killing it, and all the fast double bass, I was like, I got to figure this out. It just kind of made me want to play drums again,
You still jam regularly, like when you're just chilling at your house, or when you're around drums, just kind of just the jam, or you're more a guitar guy now, pretty much 100%.
Yeah, there was just something that kind of a switch that flipped somewhere in like 1989 that I just kind of lost interest in it to a certain degree, and then it kind of rekindled there for a while. And then I was doing the Lecherous thing, and then I just kind of let it go again. Um, and yeah, usually they're not even set up. Like my drum kit's just in a storage closet, sitting in there with some other backline items. you know, I'll pull it out, and if we're doing some rehearsals or stuff, and Joe has the drum set up or whatever, then I'll between breaks or whatever, I might get back there and screw around a little bit.
In general, well, we're actually going to play one of the songs from the debut for the 2014 debut, the self-titled debut, actually from Narcotic Wasteland. This is the Coastal Killings, which is actually about Pee Wee Gaskins, like we mentioned, and we'll be back on the Tampa Morgue right after this track. There you go. That was Coastal Killings off the 2014 self-titled debut from Narcotic Wasteland. And so that must be kind of like, now you can kind of, I know you're, like you said, you're really into the forensic files and like a lot of that, the crime and stuff like that, true crime and everything. So it's got to be a little different now, because now you're, back with Nile, you were doing a lot of the Egyptian thing, which I think was basically what Carl, and I think Pete was from Lebanon, right? So I think he had that background back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But for you now, it's kind of like your little world now, and being into all this stuff. I know you're a big reader too. It's kind of right up your alley now, because I mean, you guys have a lot of different topics, like a lot, obviously, of big pharma and stuff like that, and drug abuse and violence. But you guys kind of fell into that organically, right? Those subjects. It really wasn't intended at first to have a lot of those. Just kind of basically your surroundings from where you know live from living at and stuff became part of that.
Yeah, it's from a sort of observational standpoint in a way, and it's I really I like talking about stuff that's actually going on today. Um, not to say anything about what I mean. It's music, so there's all kinds of things that you can get into that don't have to be. What's the old Douglas Adams joke? Boy being meets girl being underneath the silvery moon, which then
Yeah, you're into his. He's another author you're into, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, the true crime thing really, I've always been kind of interested in it. And like late night, if I'm sitting up late night, I can't sleep or something like that, and Dateline comes on, or something like that, I'll get into it. And it's always been that way. But I say the past 4 or 5 years, it's been pretty bad. I read too much about the stuff. We, for dinner or lunch or whatever, we'll make lunch or dinner. And now I'm watching Forensic Files 2, which is on Max. And it's just a bunch of newer episodes with newer DNA technology. And some of the cases that they had from the original Forensic Files, they actually revisit on this show because, new developments happen in the case. And it's just pretty interesting. I know probably every time I put on Forensic Files, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that one for like years now. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, it's on all the time. You always see it on TV now.
Oh yeah,
you guys,
if you've got like Roku or whatever, there's the live TV, and I think it was channel 510. It's just Forensic Files. That's all it is.
so I have live TV here where I'm at now over in Europe, and they play Cops 24/7. Cops is on, which is it's crazy to me. I mean, as a kid, that and A Current Affair was always on, right? But they play Cops, and actually play Jerry Springer 24 hours a day on this live TV. It's all these old shows, it's like, it's crazy. But they do have the true crime channels too, and it's all day. You could just watch them, just roll them through 24/7. But when you guys were doing the Delirium record, you had most of that material written when you were leaving Nile?
I think I had maybe 2 or 3. I think there's like 3 of the songs that were going to be for the next, thing. I think I had like 2 or 3 songs. And I think it was You Will Die Alone, We Agnostics, and Bleed and Swell, I believe. Yeah, I believe it was the thrashy Bleed and Swell arena rock track. Yeah, those 3 songs. And then the rest of it came together. The rest of it came together. I left in October of 2016. So between then and October of 2017, yeah, we were able to release because the album came out in October of 2017. That's right. So yeah, we tracked it. We had everything ready by that summer for sure. But I think we had everything ready by April. I think everything was written by April. And then we just kind of tracked it, and I was just working and saving money and stuff, and yeah, and then we tracked it, and then it came out, and we did the tour right all there in October, and yeah.
Now, with that being the second release, did you feel like now that you weren't writing for Nile anymore, because it's hard for that not to bleed over a little bit, right? When you're writing a bunch of material at the same time, did you feel like your focus was more on what you wanted Wasteland to sound like on the second record because you were not really writing anymore for Nile?
Yeah, I think in a way what happened, I was pretty much able to compartmentalize the projects because as soon as the tuning, that was the big thing. The tunings are way different. So as soon as I pick up a guitar that's only a half step off of E standard, it's like a whole different animal. So I was able to kind of just yeah, it felt pretty separate to me, even though stylistically you're definitely going to hear some stuff that sounds like something Nile might do, but that's just because it's me, I guess.
Yes, it's just what's in you. Yeah.
And getting back to some of the things on the Delirium album, there is a version of the song "Anthem for the Mentally Scarred" that's a bonus track. It was a set of lyrics that I wrote back in like '95, and it was before I'd even really heard Nile or anything like that. But it is a very Nile sounding track. And back then I did tune low back then. I tuned down to B standard. And, in order to do Nile, you just got to drop the one string down and you're in Nile zone. And so I recorded this song in that tuning as a bonus track if you bought the actual CD for Delirium. And it sounds pretty Nile-y. So I think the similarities in some of the things I was doing on the guitar and some of the things that I liked to try to do were similar in ways of what was already going on in that band. And I think that's why it did work,
And you've had, obviously, you guys have had lineup changes, right? But you guys have had a few lineup changes, a few drummer changes. I think Eric was in and then he was out, right? He's back in now. What is the current lineup of Narcotic Wasteland?
The current lineup is me doing my thing on guitar and vocals, of course. A guy named Kenji on bass, which is actually like a Chapman stick thing. Pretty wild. We recently he's been with us. Oh, not quite a year yet. But yeah, I absolutely love Kenji and Joseph Howard on drums. Eric's helping me in the studio with these songs because there was a time we had Phil, and then Phil didn't work out, and then we had a guy named Sterling, and then he didn't work out. So at that point, and this was right before the whole pandemic thing happened. The last show we did with Sterling and in the band was Foamhinge in 2019 out in Houston, Texas at this brewery. And it was us, Ace Frehley headlined it, and Accept was there, Power Trip was there, High on Fire was there, and we were there. And Pat Travers Band or something like that, yeah. And so that was the last show with Sterling, and then at that point I was just like, well, I just want to try and at least get this material out. At that point I honestly didn't know how active I was going to be with the band because it was just becoming ridiculously hard to not only find somebody who can play the material, but also someone who can behave themselves on tour. And so it's always that kind of thing. But then,
would you say that's when you learn would you say that's like always kind of who's going to stick around in the band after you tour with them once? You kind of get that, you kind of see what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you're out there, even if you're on a bus, but, if you're in a van, which I'm fine with either, I enjoy either one. You've got to be really cool and respectful of the people around you and their space. And you can't be out there, partying like a motherfucker and flipping out and, just being a problem. You can't do that. I was still am a family man. I mean, of course, my son is grown now and he's doing his own thing and all that. But, at that particular time, I still had a family at home and I'm not out there trying to act a fool. I'm trying to just do my thing and hopefully make a few bucks and promote my band and one of the things I like to do is be as professional as possible, but not everybody sees it that way. They just see it like some big party or whatever. Not to say anything bad about anybody. I love all these guys. I appreciate that they even considered going out on the road and play death metal with me. But yeah, so Eric's doing the stuff in the studio, and Joe has been our live drummer for quite a few tours now. We've actually since everybody kind of opened their doors back up since the pandemic, the band has been more active on the live front than it's ever been. I'm really happy about that. And once we get this album done, we'll be moving forward recording wise with this current lineup.
And you mentioned Accept earlier. You guys did a tour with Accept in 2022, which Accept still sounds great. And how was that tour for you guys?
It was really good. Our agent was just like, I think you guys could do it. Of course, a lot of people were like, why is somebody going to put a death metal band on the bill with Accept? And, we're a death metal band, but if you listen to the stuff that we have, there's a lot of variety to it. And I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to have a bill stacked with a bunch of bands that sound real similar to each other. It's all metal to me. And, we've definitely got some blast beats and some death metal moments, but we've also got some just straight up old school fucking metal too, And I like to keep that variety in there. That was one of the cool things always about Nile. There was always so much different stuff to listen to. You have the super fast, brutal, technical stuff. You got some slow, dirgy, doomy stuff. You got some melodic stuff.
Some clean vocals sometimes you guys had once in a while going on.
Yeah, man. We, all that stuff. I guess Narcotic is similar in that way, is that, we don't want to write the same song twice. And I'm not afraid to, write a song at 110 beats per minute all the way through with a basic ass rock beat. That was one of the challenges that I put on myself. I was like, all right, you got to do this because it's going to rock, and yeah, but yeah, man, I'm real happy with the current lineup, and it's the most pro and professional we've sounded live ever, and I couldn't be happier. And it's real drama free, and everybody's a team player. That's all the important stuff. Nobody's getting totally crazy wasted and becoming a liability. There's none of that crap going on. I won't tolerate it because I call the shots now.
Yeah, because I think I heard you say on something that you're pretty much, you don't want to be in any more bands. You're not really interested in that. This is pretty much your thing now, right? You're not really looking to be involved in a bunch of different shit.
Yeah, no, not really at all, man. And we have limited time on this earth, and I wanna devote my musical side to this. And I'll do a couple of little solos on somebody's song or something like that every now and then. But even that, I'm gonna start kind of weeding out on that too, because of just having the time. Because working a lot, and then working on this a lot. And then, every now and then a feller needs a day to sit on his ass and play some games or something,
Exactly.
We need that decompression, and my personal time is very important to me. And that's why, because, that's the payoff that we get for the hard work, is to be able to sit back, crack open a beer, and fire up the Pac-Man or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we need that sometimes.
For Zelda, as you mentioned, I picture the gold. You remember as a kid, you can never forget the gold video game cartridge for Zelda.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, let me see. What do I have right here?
You remember some Zelda, don't you, Ed?
Let's see what we got right here.
I had the whole 64 catalog. You name it. I had
there it is, right there.
It is.
I just remember smacking the smacking the game machine constantly because it would freeze up or blowing inside the game.
Inside the cartridge.
Yeah.
There's the booklet even.
Oh, wow. And that's all the original?
Yeah, this is the original Legend of Zelda. I've got this cool plastic case I found years and years ago at like a flea market.
Damn, that brings back some memories right there. That's definitely,
yes, it does.
And I want to talk about your new material that you have going on for Narcotic Wasteland, but I have to ask you, because someone sent me a question in for you actually on our page. They want me to ask you, what is your live setup and what is your recording setup for Narcotic Wasteland?
For my live setup, I've been using the tried and true PV Triple X for my amp head. I like the 3-channel thing. That gives me like a little bit of a solo boost, and also the clean channel, which we never use as a kill switch. So it's just a workhorse of an amp. Sounds pretty damn good, and I usually have which I'm about to retire my old Marshall cabinets. They've seen some days, man. And they still work and sound great, but I just feel bad taking them out now because they just get more and more beat up. But yeah, usually Marshall JCM 800 cabinet that I've been using, and I think it's got the 75 waters in it. And that's pretty much it. I use the Harvey Audio Commando overdrive pedal in front of the PV amp, and Shure Wireless that's got a built-in tuner. And those pedals just sit on top of my amp. I don't have them out on the floor. The only thing I have out on the floor is the foot switch for the amp. This guy right here. Yeah.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, it's just a regular old 3-channel switcher with the MIDI cable doohickey. And it works good. It's got an effects bypass on it. And, which that's actually going to be cool next time we go out. Harvey Audio, he sent me an awesome echo delay box that I'm going to be putting through the effects loop. And this thing for solos sounds so fat, man. I love it. So I'm real happy. So I'll be using this through the effects loop. And so when I hit that effects button, I'll have a little bit of a solo boost with just a mild echo delay on it to fatten it up a little bit. And that's I'm excited about that. And that's basically the live rig. And but for recording at home, I use the Marshall JCM 900 for any serious recording that I'm actually like going to keep. And then I use a PV Windsor for all my pre-production, because it's pretty similar in characteristics to the Marshall. Especially since I've got an old Marshall cabinet in a closet over here with blankets draped on it in a 57, and it's got vintage 30s in it. And just a tried and true, formula. And yeah, so I really like the Windsor, man. It's sounding good on the pre-production. I picked that up. I picked the whole half stack up for like $500 in 2022. And I was just like, I was always curious about it. And it's a really classy looking amp with the gold front and the white and black Tolex. It's just, and put a pedal in front of it and it just rips.
PV sleeper. A lot of people don't realize that PV or sleeper. That new Invictus head is ridiculous.
Oh, I bet, man. I've been, if I was to get a different head to try out, I really like those new EVH heads. I think those sound really great. I've got to play through those. We flew into Wichita, Kansas was the last gig that we played. And, the backline that was there was 2 EVH half stacks, and man, them things were just incredible. And in the front end of that, I put this in front of it. Put the EVH MXR overdrive, and this has got like a little bit of a gate on it, and that really worked out awesome.
I used one of those with a power amp pedal for a gig, and it worked. It worked killer. You didn't know it wasn't an amp because it's the preamp version of the amp, pretty much.
Yeah, and people laugh at me, but it's funny. This thing is good as just a standalone preamp, and especially if you put something like this in front of it.
Oh man,
Super overdrive. There you go.
That's my go-to for that thing in front of that Marshall 900. That there is just nothing better for me, man. Almost all my guitars have Duncan JB Jazz sets in them now, and that combination with that super overdrive, that yellow overdrive, and the Marshall 900. Oh my God, that just, if you can't make metal with that, you need to just quit. That's just And the thing is about the Marshall is like it's such a simpler circuit. The PV stuff does sound good, and a lot of the other amp heads are great, but for some reason or another, when I track and record with that one, it's just like a blanket came off the speakers. Like it's just so much more clear and but still aggressive.
There you go. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna actually play one more song, and then we're gonna basically find out about the newer material you have out, because you have put out. So 2022, you put out "Morality" and the Wasp single. So you've been putting out singles now, I've noticed. So you did that. The Best Times Have Passed, which was 2022, also. Victims of the Algorithm, which is a great title, 2022 also. And then the track I'm going to play now is the latest one you've put out, "Sex, Lies, and DNA." And before I play that, can you tell us pretty much what that song is about?
Yeah, it's kind of a general sort of observation on just. I was just thinking about some things when it comes to the different types of killers. Like, you have your sort of methodical ones, like, like Jeffrey Dahmer or something, where they have this sort of ritual that they repeat, and it's something that they do because of like serious issues that they have mentally or something like that. But then you have this other style of killer that is just, trying to cash in on life insurance or something like that. And that to me is just so much even worse.
It's pretty fucked up, right?
So petty and over money or something like that. And, of course, things like Forensic Files are just absolutely littered with all this super selfish reasons and just like so horrible reasons to kill people. I don't know if you've been following the thing that's been going on in the Carolinas right now with the Murdaugh family. But
yeah, for sure.
So there's a line in there in Sex, Lies, DNA that touches on that. It says something about the attorney with a pill addiction who is failing in life or something like that. Yeah, that's what the line says in the song. So it kind of starts out kind of talking about like a Dahmer sort of character and everything that was going on with that, or just briefly in there. And then once the song kicks back in after the solo section or whatever, it kind of starts talking about stuff like that Murdaugh case. And also there was that guy, he was from Fayetteville, North Carolina. He went to Pine Forest High School. He moved out to like Colorado or something like that, and he was married and had kids, but then he ended up having an affair with someone in North Carolina, and he, instead of affording child support and all that stuff, he decided it'd be easier to drown them in some sort of oil tank somewhere random, So you have stuff like that, and then you have your serial killer style stuff like Gacy and Dahmer and Gaskins, and so the song is really kind of talking about that. There's a line in the song that's it says a crime of passion and a passion for crime. So that kind of in a way is showing, just that simple line right there is kind of showing both sides of that coin of those particular motivations to kill someone, whether it be you just got this with Donald Henry Gaskins. It was like he would start getting these knots in his stomach and this anxiety, and he would just have to do it because he was like it was like an addiction.
It's like a drug addiction.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, like when you think about some of these crazy random violent crimes you see on Forensic Files, like someone was all strung out on methamphetamines and ends up raping and killing people, and they become a repeat offender not because they're necessarily like the drug actually helped them become this serial rapist or serial murderer. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different angles. Like I could sit here and talk about this shit for hours.
Well, yeah, who was the worst? Do you think? Who was the evilest? I mean, it's hard to say, right? There's so many. Look at Ramirez. Just go through and obviously Pee Wee Gaskins, like you had mentioned in the Earl with the Coastal Killing song. There's a lot of them, and Gates. I mean, it's just hard to almost. I guess it's almost hard to say, but who would be in your pick is one of the most fucked up that you've read about?
Ted Bundy would be up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Ted Bundy definitely. There's my best friend from high school. We get together on the weekends, and lately we've been hooking up online and playing PUBG. But he's pretty into the serial killer thing too. And back when we were a lot younger, he actually was collecting some of those like baseball cards and stuff.
I remember they had those out. Yeah.
Yeah, but like he listens to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and he knows a lot of the like more like obscure ones. Like he's kind of more into it. I kind of started getting more into the true crime aspect through just reading stories and some of the books, and also, of course, the old forensic files, because they do such a good job with that show. And I don't know, I just get sucked into it.
Yeah, definitely. No, and so we're actually going to play, which you actually made a video for this song too, which is definitely a killer video, and you can find it on YouTube. We're going to play Sex, Lies, and DNA, which is from the 2023 single, the last thing you guys released, right? Pretty much to the public.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to play that now, and we'll be right back on the Tampa Morgue right after this song. go. That was Sex, Lies, and DNA from Narcotic Wasteland. And we are still with Dallas. So, Dallas, I know you guys pretty much, I think last year I had heard that you guys pretty much had an album. You're just sitting on it, right? It's pretty much done. So when is it gonna? Are you gonna just keep on? Is it like, I know this is a different, which we talk about a lot on the show. We live in a different world now where you put out an album and you basically have to like hold a gun to someone's head to get them to listen to every song, without, it's just a different world. So everyone's releasing singles now, and it's no different than what your guys are doing. A lot of bands now, you're seeing 5 or 6 lyric videos even go up before you even hear the album, which is totally different than the 80s and 90s. You never would have saw this. So like, what is going on with you guys? I know you guys have been sitting on a record for a while. So what is the plan?
Well, the plan is, actually, I was working on it. I'm about to finish tracking the vocals on another single. That'll be the 5th one. And we definitely plan on putting out a full album this year, for real this time. Like, there's just been so many setbacks between, lineup changes and then COVID and just all kinds of stuff. And I've been just literally just having the time, to sit down and finish it all up. And yeah, it has just all been kind of sitting there ready to go. A lot of it's already tracked. So it's just been kind of a thing of other stuff going on. And yeah, the single thing is really working out because, like you said, if you throw a whole album's worth of material out there and it ends up just being like a little flash in the pan, it ends up, just because of the way things are right now, it just ends up sort of cheating the potential reach that you can get. And it's kind of, in a way, the way I see it, it's kind of getting back to the, when I was growing up. It wasn't until I started really getting serious into some a little bit more involved music that it was like listening to the album as the whole experience. And I still personally prefer that just because that's how we grew up. But I do just see how everything is going with us just releasing the singles, and those songs are getting just as much, if not more, traction than entire albums worth of songs. Like the plays of the entire albums combined. I mean, a lot of times when people, even if you're trying to gig a show or you're trying to, we've actually been trying to, I've been talking to some different management companies because I think that's one of the next steps that we're going to try and get is we got a pretty killer booking agent, but just having someone handle some of those management duties would free me up a little bit to where I can, just concentrate on more material. So we've been kind of looking at that angle, but yeah, trying to do any of that stuff, whether it be book a show or get management or try to negotiate some sort of record deal or anything like that.
Are you still dealing with Megaforce?
Yeah, we're still distributed through Megaforce. But the thing is like, in order to really get these people to give you a chance, you have to have good numbers on your socials or good numbers on your Spotify or good numbers on your YouTube channel. That's what people are looking at now.
It's crazy.
So
now.
It's just a roll with I'm just, and so I decided to try some of this stuff out because what the hell, there's obviously not any kind of rules anymore as to, usually it was like, yeah, you put an album out and you go tour it for a year or two and then you put out another album or whatever. Every couple years you put something out and it's a whole thing, So this time we are trying a little bit differently and, I'm personally ready for this. I'm already gearing up for the next release. I already got material for the next release. So I'm just so ready for this. Like I said, there's been just a lot of stuff, and not necessarily bad stuff all the time, but just stuff that gets in the way of completing things.
Normal life shit, yeah.
Yeah, just life stuff, admin life stuff, that kind of thing. So, yeah, but it's definitely coming out this year, and and I'm going to release one more single, and I'm really excited about this one, and I'm excited about what the lyrics say. I'm really excited about some of the guitar work, and yeah, and it's going to be a very different song from the other songs we've released so far.
So I won't ask you a title because I know it's probably too early for that. But what is this next song? What is the subject matter of it?
It's basically about my personal philosophy on living life and my philosophies or opinions on a lot of things. Just sort of the round of existence we're all forced to participate in that we don't necessarily want to participate in, you know? And my personal sort of nomadic approach to life, and how I'm always going to sort of fight against that norm, you know what I mean? And promote people to sort of open their minds and not be fooled into this terrible religious and cultural indoctrinations that are just destroying us. So that's kind of what the song's about.
Yeah, Dallas, you've been around for a long time doing this. Like, how is it when you look, like, like I said, me and Ed, we talk about this shit on the show all the time. Like, now you have a lot of bands using tracks. Now you have, like, it's just the whole there's bands that can't play without laptops. They can't play their shows. It's changed so much from back. I mean, I'm probably about your age. I think we're all about the same age here. Like, it was a lot different when we were growing up, musically and stuff. Like we always say, me and Ed, we used to record on tape. It's totally different now. And now everything is. We had Snowy Shaw on. I think it was probably like 2 weeks ago. King Diamond, Merciful Fate, and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking to him, and I didn't even cover this with him, but I know with him, I don't think he said he hasn't recorded a straight drum track in the studio since like '97. Like, everything is punched in now. Like, that's how it works. Everything is it's technology now. How does it? For you, is it like, have you adapted to it, or do you just kind of find it like, because I find the no physical products. I mean, someone was telling us, it might have been Snowy, Ed, like in a couple of years, there's going to be no more vinyl left. Like,
right. Everything will be digital.
Everything will be digital.
Everybody likes to have that thing in their hand or that album in their collection, and to say that there won't be that anymore, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, what's your thought on that? Like, AI is obviously taking over, and there's a lot of opinions about it. And, we're going to sound like, to the young guys, we're going to sound like the old guys bitching about it. But it really, I feel like a lot of shit like is going to be a lost art in about 10 years, if not already.
Yeah, it's hard to say, man. The physical thing is like having the big artwork and having the big lyric sheet and having just the whole experience of going somewhere and buying it. I mean, all that stuff is really cool and dear to my heart, for sure. That we have been in some sort of format flux for quite some time now, and I'm not terribly happy about it. But at the same time, I've just got to try to roll with those punches and figure it out and live, adapt, or die, sort of thing.
Yeah, they'll leave you behind, right?
Yeah, it's really all we can do. And I think
the problem is that you go to the gym, you can't carry a record player, you can't carry even a compact disc player. It would skip all over the place if you were trying to run or do anything.
Remember those Discmans?
Yeah, man. So a Walkman would have been the only kind of thing you could get away with doing any type of exercise because it wouldn't skip. But the day before, before I was born, you had 8-track, cassette, LPs, compact disc. You always had something physical in your hands. And to think that even from the 60s and before to nothing would be weird. You know what I mean? I mean, there would have to be something. When you go to a show, that's how bands make money, is selling physical merchandise, records, CDs. People buy that shit. And to think, what are you going to do? Sell a coupon for a digital download? I mean, that's what Spotify's for. Nobody's going to pay for that.
Well, look at vinyl. Vinyl went away for a period of time. There was about a period of time where if you look at certain releases from those high, I think it was, I want to say like the mid 2000s, maybe a little bit lower. there's a lot of bands that didn't even put LP versions out of their records back then. You'll see a lot of that. And I think you're more of a CD guy.
Yeah, I prefer CDs. I mean, I understand the nostalgia behind the albums, but to me, they sound like crap. They're all poppy and pingy, and sometimes you can hear like a fluctuation in the tuning because it isn't perfectly aligned. And not all albums. Some albums sound great. You have to take care of them. I remember getting my first compact disc, and I remember hearing Tom Sawyer for the first time on compact disc and being like, oh man, I can hear so much detail in everything, and it was just great. I did never put a CD player in my car until later because they used to skip. They didn't used to have the oversampling. So they would skip. So I would just burn it to a cassette and I'd still use the cassette. Dolby C. That worked pretty good. Yeah. And, and albums, I still have a few albums. But yeah, they just kind of went to the wayside because they would always get all scratchy and poppy and they're just noisy, and I just didn't care for it as much.
I don't even think now they say that some of the vinyls you're getting, it's not even from the right mix. Like you're getting like they're not transferring the music correctly. Like you're not really getting the way you should on the vinyl. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs.
You can't put a digital recording on an analog thing. Like it's near impossible to make it sound the same. I mean, I just, as much as it sucks, the old records, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, that shit on record coming from an 8-track was completely killer. But, going backwards when you have digital to analog, kind of, I get it. Even the tape now, I can imagine would be like, what the fuck? Because, I can remember listening to Rain and Blood going, holy shit. But when I heard Rain and Blood on CD, it was like a whole new, like I heard it for the first time all over again because it was so, like even the volume was amped up on the compact disc as opposed to the tape. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you might be talking about this is the fact that when it comes to mastering, it's a different process and a little bit different for mastering. If you master for MP3 or you master for any kind of digital format, the mastering process and how much you do is going to be different for vinyl because vinyl has different frequency response.
Right.
The same with cassette. Yeah, it's a different. It's a little bit different mastering process. So when you do go to master something, you have to, and usually that also, if you want to get it mastered for vinyl, that's going to probably cost you extra.
Different sample rate too, I think.
Yeah, there's all of that stuff comes into play somehow.
I always wondered how they do it because, I know, I remember we went to we had a day off in Philadelphia on the DTA tour and went to Relapse in Philadelphia. And it was like Obituary they were showing them their 7-color spread of records that they got, the greens and the purples and the camouflage. And I was thinking, holy shit, man, and they sell the fuck out of them. I mean, it's, Obituary is a different beast, obviously, they're one of the top tier, but to think that you can make 7 different, I mean, I guess not really. Massacre made what was it? 4 colors? Something like that. So yeah, I mean, when we put
I'm weird with the colors though. I don't give a shit. Like I'll be honest, like the color thing, I don't get. I get it. Like everybody likes, everyone's got their own thing. I never got the colored. Like I didn't need to have the red or the purple or the, it's just basically like you'll see too. They'll charge like an extra $4 for a vinyl release that has like a color to it. You know what I mean? And
what do they say? It's cool to have for your own collection. I mean, I have the 5 records for myself, but if you told me I had to buy them, they'd be sitting on the shelf. I wouldn't buy it.
But think about it, like they say, Ed, how many people actually listen? Like people that buy records at the shows, it's kind of like a souvenir. It's not even something they're most likely bringing home and flopping onto their record
like
player.
A picture disc. Remember old picture discs? Oh, yeah. Man, you didn't play a picture disc, even though you could. You put that, you kept it in the fucking in the cover and you put that on your wall or you
Yep.
displayed it somewhere, man. That wasn't meant for playing. Nobody played picture discs.
Yep, that is correct. Somewhere around here, I probably still got a Black Seeds picture disc.
They're killer looking, but I've never tried to play one because I've always heard like it actually is supposed to sound worse, right?
Once I made the mistake of trying to play Live Undead, and it plays, but yeah, no, it was a bad mistake.
Yes, and, you know, and for bands like you guys like with Wasteland, you guys put out a lot of stuff yourself, and I mean the vinyl prices now are like it's insane to get vinyl pressed. And I know when the pandemic happened, the waiting list was like 2 years to get shit pressed, or it was just crazy. It's going to be
I still want
interesting.
to try and get that done one day, though, because I know there's people that said that they would definitely love to have it. You know, and getting back to what you were saying about all those color variants, that's just it. I remember a friend of mine who's a avid comic book reader, and you know that not a lot of people are buying comic books anymore, obviously. So in order for them to kind of keep afloat, they're putting out different cover variants and stuff like that because collectors are going to pick that up. They're going to pick up both variants.
Yeah,
just to have it. So that's one of the reasons why you see like multicolored vinyl releases and stuff like that. Relapse has done quite a few for Nile at this point too, and they of course they look absolutely beautiful.
And they always look great.
Yeah, they're cool. And you know some of those other ones, especially there's something about the milligram of the material they're using for the album is better quality, so that's supposed to have some kind of play into it. And hell, I didn't even know anything about that when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I still have my old Kiss records. I don't even know what the hell they're made out of them. But yeah, they all sound like, you know, that's another thing too with CDs and vinyl. The more you play CDs, you can pretty much if you keep them solid, they'll always sound good. You know, the records eventually obviously start losing it. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But I think CDs are actually, I was reading, I don't know if it's true or not, that CDs are kind of making a comeback now. I mean, like we said, there's even bands putting out 8-tracks at this time period. And cassettes, you know, obviously. I mean, 8-tracks, that baffles me to hell. I don't understand that one bit. Because I even remember when I was a kid, it was a pain in the ass when they flipped over halfway through the songs and shit. But, you know.
Yeah, I remember buying Thin Lizzy, The Black Rose.
Great record.
Yeah, what a great record. Especially the song. But I had that on 8-track. I bought it for $0.25 at Revco. Remember Revco?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
$0.25.
Yeah, for $0.25. Yeah. And I loved that damn 8-track. But yeah, they had to kind of do a different variant on the song where it would fade out and then it would click to the next program and it would kind of fade back in and they would continue. Like, that's kind of ridiculous.
You know, back then we didn't know any better, right? It was like it's kind of like the whole pencil to the tape to get your tape back in and stuff. You know, it was just normal procedure is the way it went back then. But yeah,
running the blank cassette to save one other cassette because sometimes that felt thing would come off and it wouldn't work anymore.
Or you stick the paper in the holes at the top of the cassette to record over it off the radio and stuff. I mean, you know, it's.
I still got a cassette player in my pickup truck. It works great.
Really? You know, but you don't play your old tapes now. I'd be afraid they would eat them, right? I mean,
I got, I think I got Disincarnate in there. I got Master of Puppets, Overkill Under the Influence. I think I got because Unmerciful, they had cassettes, so I have an Unmerciful cassette that I've listened to. It sounded pretty good. It's actually, you know, right there. It's a 2000 pickup truck, so that was right there at sort of the end of them putting cassette players in vehicles, and so it's a pretty good one. It's a good cassette player.
well,
I need to find somewhere around here. I still have a tape head demagnetizer.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
I still have that around here somewhere, and I'll tell you. Here's a funny story. The cassette player didn't work in the truck for a while.
Oh yeah, the muffin.
So I was on my way back up to South Carolina from Florida. I was visiting my son there, and I got in this bad traffic jam in Atlanta which as one does as you get in the trap. And I had some hand sanitizer since that was kind of during that time where hand sanitizer was like the thing.
Everywhere.
And I I put a little bit of it on the Metallica Justice cassette, the hand sanitizer, and I put it in there and it cleaned the head.
Really?
Yep. While I was sitting there in traffic. I was bored as hell.
There it is.
And I was like, yes, it fixed it. And then I listened to that whole album, cranked it all the way up.
Sure, I remember the time period when if your car got broken into back in the 80s, they might steal your tapes. These days, they'll probably leave all the tapes there.
Yep, they have no idea what they are.
They'll be like, what is this? You know, oh, man. Dallas, we really appreciate the time tonight, man. And, you know, so if, like, basically anybody who wants to find anything Narcotic Wasteland orientated, where can they go to?
Definitely check out our Facebook page. We're on the Instagram, the TikTok. You can also check me out, Dallas Toler-Wade official on Instagram. All the usual suspect, you know, social media stuff. Also, narcoticwasteland.com. We're going to be actually doing some upgrades to the website, and I actually just kind of got my website sort of revamped. So you can check out. We haven't done much with it yet, but also are going to be doing stuff over at DallasTolerWade.com. Definitely check out Narcotic Wasteland on YouTube. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff over there. Some shorts, some some playthroughs. We did that thing with the 10-year anniversary, and the response was absolutely incredible. And people were asking for playthroughs of some other songs from Delirium and from some of our singles. And so, yeah, that's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate everybody's comments and likes and subscriptions. It helps us do this thing, you know what I mean? And it's exciting to see the band grow these 10 years, and you know, even though there hasn't been a lot of PR on it and all that stuff, just it being in existence and going out there and saying something every now and then, it's just watching it grow, you know. And we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Yeah, come check us out.
You guys have some show. You guys do have some dates booked, don't you, for this year coming up?
Yeah, the June and July we've got some shows in Florida. I know we got one in Fort Lauderdale. We got one in Tampa. I think one in Jacksonville, and it's a U.S. tour. We got a few shows in Texas and Louisiana with Whore of Bethlehem, and that's a killer band, and there's some cool guys. And actually, the Fort Lauderdale show, Derek's band, one of Derek's bands, is going to be playing there, so it'll be cool.
Is it Isotropy or Serpent's Rise?
Yeah,
Isotropy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So excited about that. We're actually going to be doing some support shows with the band Filth, which is some friends of ours, and they're on the same agency. Actually, helped get them on the agency just because it's not really necessarily a style of music that I listen to often, but I just love to see a band that is really good live. They have a great energy, and they work their asses off.
Yeah, you know Filth. You know the singer for Filth. Is it Sparky? You know Tony.
Yeah. No, I know the band Filth. Yeah.
They just got one of their songs, Chin Check, just went kind of like viral and shit. I'm just so happy and proud of those dudes, man, because I just love seeing a band work hard, and because those guys are tour dogs. They worked hard, and now it's really starting to come together for them, and that's just always like such an awesome thing to see. You know,
it's fucking hard these days. I mean, it's you got to really give bands that do break out a little bit. It's so damn. It's the hard thing. I mean, it's a different ball game now. It's like the Wild West. You just don't. I mean, you know. Sometimes I didn't really realize it. When I figured out the whole Bion thing at first, I'd be like, how's a lot of bands? I was like, how did this band get on here? It was Bions, but the bands that actually get through and actually really make a mark, it's really impressive these days because it just seems so damn hard. I mean, you know, you have to do it because you love it.
A lot of bands. It's just so many bands, you know, and you got to really have something special and unique, and that's why these guys are, really catching on, because they do have something special and unique that's kind of not like a lot of the 10,000 other bands that are trying to do things,
Yeah,
and definitely one of the things that's kind of helped us along the way too, where we sound a little bit different.
Yeah, and especially compared to the Nile thing, you guys have that definitely more of the thrash thing going on. Like I said, there's definitely the mix with the black metal and stuff in there. You guys, it's definitely the guitars and everything. Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to hearing the new record too. And Dallas, man, I really appreciate you putting the time for us tonight. It was great having you on here.
Oh yeah, man, thanks for having me.
No problem, man.
Definitely killer.
When you get the new song done, we'll definitely play it on here and stuff. And you're always welcome on. And I mean, anything else you want to say to anybody who's listening who has not, anything you want to say? Go ahead.
I always say this, just thanks so much. Even if you're not into what I do in particular, just thanks everybody who's, kept metal alive all these decades. And I still think it's just some of the most innovative, greatest music of our time. And I really appreciate everybody's support. And we're all in this shit together, and keep flying those horns.
That's right. There you go. And for Dallas, we'll say goodbye to you when we hang up here. But for anybody who listens, Ed, where can they find us at?
Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Facebook, sort of, kind of, Instagram. Anywhere.
Facebook sucks. Let's be honest. Facebook, we haven't figured out how to get Facebook. If you're not buying the ads, I don't think you're really getting the traffic.
It's a popularity contest. You said it earlier. If you don't have little kids, that are all friends of friends of friends poking your little page, Facebook kind of blows. Yeah, Instagram's the way to go, really. I mean, because it's such a bigger reach these days.
Yeah, Instagram.
Got to have the Facebook, but I mean, Instagram's probably the go-to.
Yeah, and anybody who checks us out, we do appreciate it, and we'll be back, I think, this week or later next week. And you can, like I said, you can find us pretty much everywhere Ed just said. You can email us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. This is episode number 36, Ed. So we've somehow gotten this many done. So Dallas, again, man, it was awesome having you on, and and you're welcome anytime.
Oh man, thanks for having me, and just hit me up if you guys want me back on. We'll figure
it out.
You.
I'll see you in Florida when you come down, because I'm in Tampa, so I'll see you in Tampa.
Excellent.
Ed buys drinks for everybody on the first drink for everybody.
Yeah.
But so everybody, thanks for listening. And Dallas, like I said, we'll say goodbye to you when we hang up here. Everybody else, thanks for listening to the Tampa Morgue, and we will see you soon. Peace.
See ya.